Yo, what up, everyone? Tay here. And it is the end of the month, so that means we have Super Thanks questions to respond to. And this is the first month we've been doing it this way, where we will do all the Super Thanks at the end of the month. So I hope you guys are cool with that, where instead of just doing them at the end of each video, we will save them for the end of the month and turn them into their own video. So yeah, we have some good Super Thanks questions today regarding Spider-Man Brand New Day, VisionQuest, and Avengers Doomsday. So yeah, we're going to get into those post-haste, but just real quick, remember that if you would like to leave a super thanks with a question or a comment on this video, that those really do help out the channel a lot, and we will be getting to those in a dedicated video at the end of September. And then also real quick, if you missed my last two videos on Avengers Doomsday stuff regarding Wanda and Magneto and the Brotherhood of Mutants, and also the one before that on Doctor Doom and Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom's Avengers teams, they are both good ones. You should check them out. They are linked in the description down below. And of course, as always, if you're a fan of Marvel and the MCU, you should subscribe to the channel because that is the kind of nerdy stuff we talk about here. But anyways, let's jump into these super thanks. And to start off, we have 3 $5 ones from Mr. Gator Chris, and then also one $5 one from Blackfire Warrior. Thank you very much, Chris and Blackfire Warrior. As always, you guys are awesome. Then we also have $21 from Jeffrey Fettis. Jeffrey Fetz, not sure. But this one says, would love to hear your theories on how Hulk is going to fit into the next Spider-Man movie. And I like this question because this is actually something that I've been wondering and thinking about myself lately. Because if you guys remember back in the Infinity Saga, because of the rights issues around Marvel Studios developing a solo Hulk movie, what they did back in the Infinity Saga was instead of doing just one Hulk film, they instead spread Hulk's larger story arc across multiple films, kind of starting off in Age of Ultron and then going forward into Phase 3 with Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Endgame. And based on what we've heard regarding the plans for Hulk coming up, it sounds like Marvel Studios will kind of be doing the same thing in Phase 6. Because we have heard reports that the next place we are going to see Bruce Banner will actually be in the Wonder Man series, and that will kind of help to set up his side plot in Spider-Man Brand New Day, and that will then set up his bigger arc for Doomsday and Secret Wars. Now, as far as Wonder Man goes, we don't know exactly what Bruce's role in that will be, but the rumor is that Simon Williams will seek out Bruce's help because he needs him to help investigate an ionic radiation lab in Hollywood that'll likely be tied to some kind of villainous activities. But based on the different rumors and scoops we've heard for Spider-Man Brand New Day, it sounds like Peter and Bruce could actually be working together on some kind of project at some point early on in the movie, possibly something revolving around gamma radiation. And if something like that is the case, then one question it brings up, for me at least, is how will that work? Because we know that Doctor Strange cast the spell back in No Way Home that made everyone forget who Peter Parker was and that he was Spider-Man. And we know that as the Spider-Man movie moves on, that most likely we will eventually see Spider-Man having to deal with Hulk when he becomes the Savage Hulk, because that's what we've heard, is that Bruce is going to become Savage Hulk once again, meaning that he won't be able to control himself once he turns into Hulk. You know, like it was back in The Incredible Hulk and the first Avengers movie. But if the rumors we've heard about Peter and Bruce working together before that happens are true, then what I wonder about is if Bruce will actually know who Spider-Man is and what his real identity is, and that if Bruce might even actually remember that Peter is Spider-Man. Because I do actually think it's a possibility that Bruce could actually be one of the only MCU characters on Earth who actually still remembers who Peter Parker is. And I think there's actually two ways that that could possibly be explained. And one possibility could be the whole split personality factor between Bruce and Hulk, and that maybe for some reason the spell didn't end up working on both personalities or something like that. But the other possibility that I think is probably more likely is that maybe the spell didn't work on Bruce and Hulk because the Hulk was actually off-world in space at the time that that spell was cast. Because when Doctor Strange was casting the initial spell in No Way Home, he said, quote, everyone in the world is about to forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And then later in the movie, towards the end, when he casts the spell again, Peter asks him to cast the original spell like it was going to be before.
Nice knowing you, Spider-Man.
Wait, excuse me?
The entire world's about to forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
So if that is how the spell works and it only affects everyone on Earth, then theoretically, this could mean that anyone who was off-world at that time or anyone out in space wouldn't have been affected by the spell. Because the events of Spider-Man No Way Home took place in late 2024. And if we look back at the timeline of the She-Hulk series, the flashbacks during that show where we saw the Hulk early on, those took place in mid-2024. And then the rest of the show took place in early 2025. And we know that at a certain point during the events of She-Hulk, that Bruce left on a mission into space back to Sakaar, and he then returned at the end of the series with his son Scar. And I just bring this up because this could very well mean that Hulk was off-world out in space when Doctor Strange's spell was cast, and that therefore the spell might not have affected him, and that he could be one of the few people that still remember that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But then as far as other theories that I have for Hulk and the events of Brand New Day, something else I remember is that back in July, Alex Perez posted a scoop where he said that he heard from his sources that the plot of Brand New Day was going to explore the aspects of both Bruce and Peter's backstories that haven't been revealed so far in the MCU. And, that definitely does seem like something that would make sense because both Spider-Man and Hulk have been in the MCU for quite a while now, and we still don't know a whole lot about the backstories and origin stories of both characters. For instance, we still don't know the exact backstory of how Peter was bitten by the radioactive spider that gave him his abilities. And similarly, we also don't know very many of the specific details behind how Bruce became the Hulk. Now, what we do know about Bruce's backstory is that before the events of The Incredible Hulk, that Bruce was working on a project for Thaddeus Ross because Ross was trying to recreate the super soldier serum from Project Rebirth that turned Steve Rogers into Captain America. But the thing is that Ross misinformed Bruce on what the project was really for, and this is what led to Bruce using gamma radiation instead of Vita radiation, which led to the exposure that turned him into the Hulk. So in Spider-Man Brand New Day, I wouldn't be surprised if we learn more specific details on both Bruce and Peter's backstories, and that maybe their backstories could even be connected somehow. Because back in the Incredible Hulk movie, we did see that Thaddeus Ross did have access to a version of the super soldier serum that he had administered to Emil Blonsky. And this serum that he gave Blonsky was labeled as being part of the Weapons Plus program. And in the comics, there was the Weapon Plus program, which was basically like an umbrella term for various different super soldier projects, like Project Rebirth with Steve Rogers, as well as the Weapon X project that was responsible for giving Wolverine his adamantium skeletal system. So the point of that is that we know that Thaddeus Ross's involvement with the Super Soldier program went deeper than just the work he was doing with Bruce Banner, and that he must have been successful in creating a different version of the Super Soldier serum because we saw that serum given to Emil Blonsky. And again, this is just theory talk, speculation, but maybe once we get to Spider-Man Brand New Day, it could be revealed that the spider that bit Peter Parker and gave him his abilities actually came from Thaddeus Ross's work with the military in trying to create super soldiers. That maybe there could have been a different project underneath that umbrella that involved experimenting on spiders as a way to create super soldiers or something like that. And maybe it could even be revealed that Bruce was somehow involved in that project and that maybe his research was used to create it, or that he even directly created it himself. And that this project that has its roots tying back to Project Rebirth from the first Captain America movie could actually be directly connected to Bruce Banner and Peter Parker being bitten by the spider that turned him into Spider-Man. Or another theory that I also have is that maybe the spider that bit Peter Parker could tie back to S.H.I.E.L.D. and Peter Parker's parents. Because in the comics, Peter Parker's parents actually worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. So maybe that could be the same case in the MCU, and we just haven't heard it yet. That maybe Peter Parker's real parents could have actually worked directly under Nick Fury, and that maybe the radioactive spider program that led to Peter being bit could have actually been a project under S.H.I.E.L.D. and something tied to Nick Fury or Peter's parents or other characters that have been associated with S.H.I.E.L.D. in the past. And, who knows? Maybe that could even still tie into the Thaddeus Ross, Bruce Banner angle, because we do know that Thaddeus Ross was connected to S.H.I.E.L.D. back in the day before the events of the Incredible Hulk movie. So yeah, there's a lot of different angles that Marvel Studios could take on finally revealing Peter Parker and the Hulk's origin stories. But I do feel like with this movie, with Spider-Man Brand New Day being the fourth Spider-Man film and being about Peter's development and kind of the emotional darkness he will be going through in this movie, that it would be a good time to finally reveal what exactly happened to him in the past and what his specific origin story was. And that tying that into Bruce and his origin story in some way could make for an interesting dynamic between those two characters that maybe could even lead to the later conflict. So yeah, thank you very much for that question and generous super thanks, Jeffrey. I really appreciate it. And then the next one we have is from Simmersy245. And this one says, given how we have VisionQuest with the long-rumored return of Tommy alongside Vision and his potential Vision family, and also how Agatha All Along ended, do you think VisionQuest may end with the reunion of the twins along with Catherine Hahn's return? Or do you think it may potentially lead into the events of Avengers Doomsday, for example, maybe an incursion occurring moments into the post-credit sequence? All right, so again, I'm actually glad you brought this up because this was actually something that I kind of wanted to talk about in the last video when I was talking about Wanda and the Brotherhood of Mutants, and I ended up just scrapping it because it was just going to be too much time. It was just going to be a whole nother rabbit hole. And yeah, at this point, it's pretty much looking like a sure thing that not only will Tommy be introduced in the VisionQuest series, but that Joe Locke could actually have a fairly significant role in the series as well. So if it's true that both Billy and Tommy are going to have somewhat prominent roles in the VisionQuest show, this makes me think that the series will be partially adapting elements from the Young Avengers Presents Wiccan and Speed story, where Billy and Tommy reunite and start their quest to find their long-lost mother. Because the thing about this story is it helped to set up the Children's Crusade comic run, where the Young Avengers teamed up with Magneto to help find Wanda Maximoff, who had been lost with amnesia after the events of House of M. So, while I don't think that VisionQuest will end with an incursion, I could still see the show helping to set up an important storyline in the future regarding the 616 version of Wanda, and that the show could even reveal where Wanda has been and what her state is since the ending of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So yeah, maybe what we could see happen in Doomsday or Secret Wars is that when the 616 Wanda finally comes back, that she could have amnesia just like she did in the comics, and that Tommy and Billy, and maybe also Vision, could be the only ones that could help her break free from the spell she's under and regain her memories so that she can then help all the heroes defeat Doctor Doom and save the multiverse, similar to what happened at the end of the Children's Crusade story. And remember, we did actually see both Tommy and Billy in that leaked concept art that came out earlier this year for Avengers Secret Wars. So if Tommy and Billy are in the upcoming Avengers films, especially Avengers Secret Wars, then I do think that their roles in those movies will likely be there to serve the bigger story for what's happening with Wanda, and that whatever that arc is could be set up by what happens in the VisionQuest show. So yeah, I don't think that VisionQuest will be too directly tied to the upcoming Avengers films, but it could still have some big ramifications, especially when it comes to what's happening with Wanda. So yeah, I hope that was a good answer to your question, and thank you very much for the super thanks. I appreciate it a lot. And then we have just one more from Mr. Aaron B. 6849. And this one says, "Hey Tay, great video as always. As I'm writing this, I just read about the rumor from Jeff Snyder about Robert Downey Jr. causing 3 weeks of reshoots, and that there's been a lot of dysfunction so far on the Doomsday set. What are your thoughts on this? I know this is a major grain of salt territory, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't worry me just a tiny bit. All right, well, when it comes to Jeff Snyder, I do think he's quite reliable when it comes to casting information and stuff like that. But if you watch his live shows, you can tell it definitely seems like he has an axe to grind with Disney and hasn't had some good experience with them and is kind of a bit bitter. And it definitely seems like he likes to feed off the drama a little bit and hype things up a bit. So I don't read into that too much. And when it comes to Robert Downey Jr. possibly causing reshoots, you know, the Russo brothers and Marvel Studios pushed back the release of Avengers Doomsday so they had the time to make the best movie possible and not be rushed. So I don't worry about that, especially with Robert Downey Jr., because we know that Robert Downey Jr. is an actor that is known for doing this, that he likes to play around a lot with his lines. He doesn't like to be tied down too specifically to the script. He likes to do a lot of takes and try different things in the scene and different dialogue. And that he's also an actor who gets really invested in his characters and really tries to live in their skin so he can put on the best performance. So potentially you can look at this as more of a good thing that Robert Downey Jr. and the Russo brothers are willing to do 3 weeks of reshoots, if that's even true. But if it is true, that they are willing to do that to make the movie better and make the right decision for the scenes and everything they're doing. And then as far as just the other rumors we've heard about drama on the set, we know that a lot of that has been overblown. It's been reported that a lot of the rumors weren't even true. Now, it sounds like maybe there is a little bit of friction that's being caused by one actor. But the thing is, too, is that drama happens on movie sets all the time. And there are so many stories out there that we've heard about lead actors who can't stand each other, and you don't ever hear about it until years later, but you could never tell when you actually watch the movie because their performances are so good. So yeah, I wouldn't stress about it too much, and if it were some other director who had never done a movie this big, I might be worried, but I trust the Russo brothers because I think they have the best track record when it comes to directing MCU films. Now, their other movies outside of the MCU are kind of a different story, but when it comes to the MCU, they have my trust. So yeah, I wouldn't stress about it too much, but that's just me. But anyways, that is it for the super thanks of today's video and from the past month. So thank you very much to all of you guys who left those and being patient and waiting for me to try something new where we focus one video on all the super thanks. I kind of like it because this allows me to take more time with each question or theory instead of just trying to condense it down into like a 1-minute answer. So I hope you guys like this format. Let me know if you did in the comments down below. And remember that if you would like to leave a super thanks with a question or a comment on this video, that we will be getting to those at the end of next month. And yeah, if you missed my last video all about Wanda and Magneto and the Brotherhood of Mutants and Avengers Doomsday, check it out. And yeah, subscribe to the channel if you are new here and a fan of Marvel and the MCU. Come follow the channel on Twitter. And I will be back soon with the next one.